They became involved with someone else. Not because you were lacking in any way, not because you were easy to forget, but because something within them was not ready to embrace what was real. And now they carry a message that can no longer be pushed aside or hidden from view. What they want to express is not simple. It is not comfortable either, because while they were physically present in another place, emotionally a part of them never completely drifted away from you, and that truth has now become too strong for them to deny. Have you ever experienced a connection that never truly faded? Even when everything on the surface suggested it was over, something remained unfinished, quietly existing in the background of your thoughts. That is where they have been all this time, not exactly living in the past, but existing in a space where truth was postponed rather than erased. Because genuine connection does not simply vanish, it waits, it lingers, and eventually it asks to be seen for what it truly is. If you want to understand the real reason they returned carrying this urgent message after being with someone else, hit like right now. They chose what felt secure instead of what felt authentic. They moved toward what was familiar rather than what was calling to them from a deeper place within. They held on to what was easy to manage instead of stepping towards something that could have transformed them in a meaningful and lasting way. By doing this, they convinced themselves that comfort and peace were the same thing. Yet even while they believed that, something inside them continued questioning the choice. They remained where life felt predictable, where emotions demanded very little, and where they could stay in control without much effort. Still, beneath the surface there was always a quiet awareness that something more significant had been left behind. Something that required a level of courage they simply did not possess at that point in their life. Once that realization started settling inside them, it did not disappear. It did not slowly fade away with time. Instead, it remained present during the moments when they could no longer distract themselves or run from what they felt. It appeared during quiet evenings, in the silence between conversations, and in those moments when their thoughts became louder than the world around them. The feeling never demanded attention, but it refused to disappear. It stayed there steadily, reminding them that something important remained unresolved. No matter how much they attempted to move forward, this awareness followed behind every decision they made, quietly influencing how they experienced the days ahead. In the silence between conversations and in the repetition of routines that gradually blended together, they began noticing how little life was actually asking of them. Everything felt manageable, yet somehow restricted, as though growth had been exchanged for familiarity. They started realizing how much of their true self they had been suppressing simply to keep life uncomplicated. They avoided deeper questions. They avoided stronger emotions. They avoided situations that challenged who they really were beneath the surface. As time passed, this created an inner distance. They were present in their own life, but not completely connected to it, and eventually that quiet separation became impossible to ignore. What they shared with the other person may have appeared stable from the outside, but it lacked the depth, significance, and emotional impact they once experienced. What existed between you carried something different, something that reached further into their heart and remained there much longer. The things that truly matter do not disappear simply because someone walks away from them. They continue existing in the background of the mind, waiting patiently to be recognized. They do not demand attention, yet they never completely fade. With time, those emotions begin rising again, not through dramatic events, but through subtle reminders that something meaningful once existed. Eventually, they stopped pretending to themselves. This did not happen through a single moment of clarity or a sudden revelation. It happened slowly, honestly, and in a way that felt both uncomfortable and undeniable. They admitted that they were never fully alive in the place they chose to remain. Something essential had always been missing, even if they spent a long time refusing to acknowledge it. They realized that no matter how much they tried convincing themselves they had moved on, a part of them remained emotionally unfinished with you. This awareness did not arrive easily. It came through a level of honesty that forced them to examine their decisions without excuses, distractions, or avoidance. Comment still here if you've ever felt that a connection never truly ended, even when they were with someone else. They eventually understood that they never truly gave this connection a fair opportunity. Not because it lacked value, but because it required bravery. It required a level of openness they were not prepared to offer at that stage of their journey. The kind of courage that asks a person to show up without emotional armor. The courage to face rejection. The courage to feel deeply without knowing what the outcome might be. It meant risking heartbreak, embracing change, and allowing themselves to become someone different because of what they felt. Instead of stepping toward that possibility, they stepped away from it. They chose security over growth, even though part of them understood exactly what they were leaving behind. Now that awareness carries a message they could not speak before, it is not perfect. It is not carefully crafted. It is not asking for sympathy. It simply exists as a quiet truth that continues living within them. They understand now. They see what you represented in their life from a completely different perspective. They recognize that what they were avoiding was never truly you. It was the parts of themselves they were unwilling to face honestly. That realization changes something deep within them. It reshapes the way they view their past, their choices, and their understanding of what truly mattered. It is not a dramatic transformation, but it is a lasting one. Because once a person clearly sees their own avoidance, they cannot pretend it never existed. They cannot return to the illusion that nothing happened or that none of it mattered. Whether they decide to reach out or remain silent, something inside them has already shifted permanently. The illusion they were living within has completely fallen apart, and with that collapse comes both discomfort and clarity. They are forced to sit with the truth of what they avoided and to carry the emotional weight of that realization. There is no simple escape once that truth becomes impossible to ignore. What you need to hold on to above everything is this one truth. None of this was ever a reflection of your worth or your value as a person. It was always a reflection of their emotional readiness and their capacity to deal with what they were feeling at that specific time. Type yes if you want me to reveal the real reason they were never fully able to let go of you emotionally. You were never replaced by someone better in any sense. You simply crossed paths with someone who did not yet have the ability to meet you at the level where you were standing. And now they are living with the outcome of their own decisions, carrying the weight of everything they avoided, postponed, and left unresolved. Whether they ever speak about it or not, that is the real impact in their life. Not some dramatic return or sudden confession, but a slow realization settling deeper into their awareness with time. You were real, and real connections leave an imprint that cannot be erased by convenience, distraction, or avoidance of any kind. They want you to understand that their decisions were never a reflection of your worth, but rather a reflection of their own fear and their emotional capacity at that time. The hesitation, the distance, and the inconsistency all came from fear, not from not understanding what you meant to them. And now that this fear has been confronted, it has made them more aware, more honest, and more conscious of the consequences of how they handled something that truly mattered. In this awareness, they now carry a clarity that feels heavy, undeniable, and not easy to soften with excuses or simple explanations anymore. In that clarity, they can clearly see what they ignored, what they delayed, and what can no longer be undone or easily changed. They now see the impact their silence, inconsistency, and emotional avoidance had on someone who genuinely deserved full presence, honesty, and real effort from them. This awareness does not bring comfort. Instead, it brings a steady realization that remains with them. It does not rush away, nor does it fade quickly with time. Instead, it quietly stays within them, reminding them of every moment they chose distance over honesty and hesitation over truth in the past. This is not a request or a desire for anything to return to what it once was. It is not asking for reconciliation or another opportunity. It is simply an acknowledgement, a quiet understanding that only comes after reflection and inner growth on their side. They now recognize the courage you showed by being emotionally open, by asking for clarity, and by refusing to accept half-hearted effort or unclear attention from them. And within that recognition, both respect and regret exist at the same time. Respect for your strength and honesty, and regret for not having the courage to meet you at that same emotional level when it mattered most. That regret is not loud or dramatic in any external way. It is quiet, internal, and constantly present beneath the surface of their thoughts. It appears in late-night reflections, in silent moments when distractions no longer work, and in memories they cannot fully push away no matter how much they try. It keeps reminding them of the chances they let slip, the honesty they avoided, and the connection they did not protect when they had the opportunity. This feeling does not demand attention, yet it never fully disappears from their mind. It remains steady and consistent, shaping the way they now understand their past and the choices they made during that period of life. What they most want you to understand clearly is that this is not just about missing comfort or familiarity. It goes much deeper than that. It is about finally recognizing what a real connection feels like and realizing that something genuine cannot simply be replaced or ignored. In every choice they made, a part of them was still aware of you the entire time. Aware of the truth they were not expressing openly. That awareness never fully disappeared. It only grew stronger over time, slowly turning into a clarity they can no longer deny or avoid in their daily life. They are not asking for forgiveness, and they are not trying to force any decision from you. They are only offering the truth of what they have come to realize, something they were not able to express before this point. This is their truth, shared in a quiet and honest way, without performance or exaggeration. It comes from someone who finally sees what was always in front of them and now carries that understanding with full responsibility. There is no attempt to rewrite the past or change its meaning. There is only acceptance of what it was. They are no longer running from the emotions they once avoided for so long. They are no longer splitting their attention or hiding behind silence and distraction as before. They have faced their hesitation, their emotional distance, and their fear of vulnerability within themselves. Through that process, they have come to one clear realization. The person they hesitated to fully show up for was always you, without question. And that truth now carries emotional weight that can no longer be ignored by them. That realization has reshaped the way they understand connection, honesty, and emotional presence in their life. They are different now in awareness. Even if the past cannot be changed, even if they never act on what they feel, the understanding they carry will not disappear. It remains because they now see you clearly, not as an option, not as something replaceable, but as a meaningful connection they were not ready for at that time. That truth stays with them and continues to shape their thoughts, following them into future experiences where real emotional depth appears again in life. What comes next is no longer driven by confusion or uncertainty for them. It becomes about conscious choice, your clarity, your boundaries, and your ability to remain grounded in your own truth and self-respect moving forward. Take a moment and let this sink in fully. Allow yourself to feel the weight of what has already passed and what may still unfold ahead in your journey. Trust your instincts, your inner voice, and the strength you have built through your experiences over time. You already know deep down what feels right for you. You already understand what you truly deserve. And now, with full awareness of both their realization and your own growth, your next step can be taken with clarity, calmness, confidence, and steady self-respect. On the surface, a person may look completely committed somewhere else or appear fully focused on a different direction in life. However, emotionally and psychologically, a part of them can still stay tied to something they never fully processed, understood, or resolved earlier. This is not a simple matter of betrayal or blame, but instead reflects the deeper and more layered reality of human attachment, fear, and the gradual process of personal development that unfolds over time. What makes such situations especially intense is the influence of fear in shaping decisions that people often do not fully recognize while they are making them. Fear silently guides choices far more than most individuals realize in their everyday lives. Fear of closeness, fear of emotional vulnerability, fear of losing control, and even fear of confronting one's own inner truth can all lead a person to split their emotional attention or avoid what they genuinely feel inside. In those moments, they may shift toward other connections, not necessarily because of true emotional love, but more often due to comfort, distraction, or an unconscious attempt to avoid deeper emotions. At the same time, the individual they were once deeply connected to does not simply disappear from their inner world. Even if it is never openly discussed, that presence continues to exist through memories, silent comparisons, and unspoken thoughts that remain within them. This ongoing presence slowly shapes their emotional reality in ways that may not be visible from the outside, yet are strongly felt within their inner world. Over time, regret begins to play an important role when someone avoids emotional honesty or delays forming a real and grounded connection. Eventually, the consequences of avoidance start to surface in their awareness. This realization often arrives quietly, during moments of reflection, stillness, or when distractions no longer exist to cover their thoughts. It is not just about missing someone in a simple emotional sense. It becomes about clearly recognizing the decisions that were made, the fear that influenced those decisions, and the missed opportunity to fully value a meaningful emotional bond that once existed. Such understanding does not appear quickly or easily. It develops gradually and becomes stronger with every moment of honesty a person allows themselves to face. And once it becomes fully clear, it continues to shape how they move forward and how they interpret what truly matters in their life ahead. If this message resonates with you, you might even feel the urge to reflect deeply or acknowledge how it brings back certain emotions that were never fully processed. This type of regret is powerful because it confronts a person with accountability, humility, and the potential for genuine inner growth that lasts beyond temporary feelings. It does not allow easy escape or simple distraction from reality. Instead, it forces an individual to directly face their own choices and the impact those choices created on others. At the same time, growth is never one-sided or limited to a single person. In this journey, while one individual begins to confront fear, accept responsibility, and understand emotional truth more clearly, the other person is also evolving in their own distinct way. That other person gradually learns to establish stronger boundaries, protect their peace, and value their self-respect more deeply than before, even when distance becomes necessary. This creates a dynamic where both individuals continue to evolve, sometimes at different speeds, yet still moving in parallel directions internally over time. When clarity eventually arrives for one side, the other may already have developed a stronger sense of awareness, emotional maturity, and inner stability. This shift ensures that any possible future interaction, if it ever happens, is no longer driven by confusion, emotional dependence, or uncertainty. Instead, it becomes based on conscious understanding, maturity, and clear emotional choice. The dynamic between them changes completely because both individuals are no longer the same versions of themselves they once were, even if memories of that connection still exist within them. Even when someone seems to have moved forward externally, parts of their inner emotional world can remain connected to something that was never fully understood or completely resolved. That original emotional bond continues to influence how they interpret happiness, meaning, and emotional satisfaction in everyday life. This is why outward behavior can sometimes feel disconnected from internal reality in subtle but meaningful ways. There is often a quiet contrast between what a person presents to the world and what they genuinely experience within their heart. This contrast is not always intentional, but it becomes more noticeable as awareness grows and deeper questions naturally begin to arise within them. Meanwhile, the person who once sought honesty, clarity, and emotional presence is also evolving over time. They are no longer standing still or waiting in the same emotional position. They are becoming more grounded, more self-aware, and more confident in their own worth. They are learning to trust their instincts, listen to their inner voice, and move forward with greater clarity in each step they take. This growth ensures that if any reconnection ever occurs, it will not come from emotional dependency or confusion, but from a place of balance, strength, and conscious understanding of what truly matters. This shared evolution becomes significant because it prevents both individuals from repeating the same emotional patterns that once created distance between them. It allows any potential future interaction to be guided by awareness rather than confusion, and maturity rather than emotional instability. Another important realization that emerges through this process is that emotional presence is not limited to physical closeness alone. Even when someone is physically present with another person, a part of their emotional self can still remain attached to an unresolved connection from the past. This emotional presence is quiet but persistent, showing itself through thoughts, memories, and unconscious comparisons that happen without deliberate intention. In the end, everything ultimately returns to awareness, truth, and personal growth that endures. What was once hidden gradually becomes clear. What was once avoided eventually becomes understood. A person is eventually forced to confront their fears, hesitation, and the choices they made along the way, and this reshapes how they perceive their entire life moving forward. At the same time, you also grow into someone who no longer relies on confusion or mixed signals to feel secure about your worth. You learn to protect your peace, trust your instincts, and stand firmly in your self-respect without needing validation from anyone else. What this creates is not a story centered on loss or return, but a clear recognition of what was real and what it demanded from both individuals. You represented something genuine, meaningful, and emotionally significant, something that required courage and presence to maintain. That truth has now been acknowledged, even if it arrived later than expected. But your life does not pause for someone else's realization. You continue moving forward with clarity, strength, and a deeper understanding of what you truly deserve and what you will no longer accept. So what remains is simple. Stay grounded in your truth and trust the growth you have experienced over time. Let your decisions come from clarity rather than old emotional confusion or lingering uncertainty. What is meant to align with you will meet you with the same honesty, effort, and presence that you have always carried within yourself. Anything that cannot meet that standard will naturally fall away without force. If this message spoke to you, share your thoughts on which part resonated the most, and subscribe for more reflections on emotional truth, personal growth, and self-worth.